All right, we are live with the one and only John Tonthat. John, welcome. It is so great to have you here.
It's great to be here with you.
we we were just laughing as we were jumping on, saying you can't take yourself too seriously. And anyway, I still have a smile on my face. So I'm so glad that you're here. You and I have known each other for a couple years now. We've
Yeah.
had some really great conversations, especially recently, and we'll dive into that in a little bit. But before we get ahead of ourselves, for those of you who don't know John, tell us a little bit about yourself. How'd you get here, John?
Sure. I'll start with what I do for work because the occupation is a good starting point. So I work for Ingram Micro. I do several things for Ingram. I run their incubation business in terms of new partner types. We're part of the strategy team that is ideating what are the solutions and technologies that Ingram needs to think about over the next couple of years. And then I'm hyper focused around all things around consulting services as Ingram is evolving to meet the channel needs. I think once we have that background, the question is, okay, John, how did you get here? And I get that question every so often. So I'll start with uh, I'm a child of immigrant parents. Arrived here in the States in 1975, 10 years old. Um, and it is from that sort of background that really has steeled uh, my passion to drive hard and push myself as hard as I can. And I think it sort of starts from that.
Yeah. And I've noticed that consistently about you. In fact, that's one of my favorite things about our interactions is you're incredibly thoughtful. And, I was just saying this before, you can almost see the wheels and you're, just kind of constantly turning. You're a deep thinker. The industry sort of broad and deep. But I also think that there's this sort of personal component, that you really genuinely care about the people that are in your life from a work, part, and then from a professional or a personal part. So I've noticed that consistently about you, and maybe that's from that background of understanding that I had to work this hard. And that's kind of what got you in this mindset. So you touched on briefly kind of what you do and, how you're so hyper focused on sort of what's next. And that's part of the reason I wanted to touch base today on this live was because right now, everyone's talking about disruption. Everyone's talking about innovation. Those couldn't be two bigger buzzwords than those right now. And to do that, to think creatively, to innovate, in line with what you're doing, you're innovating and helping, one of the largest ships in technology, Ingram Micro, kind of make these shifts and drive more consultative thought and thought leadership. As you're doing that, I'm wondering if there's anything that you do that you find as maybe a best practice or that, tools, resources, or sort of a process that you take when you're trying to think of sort of reimagining the norm or thinking of what's next. Do you have anything that you kind of go to?
I don't know that there's a per se a go-to.
Okay.
I'll share with you some things that I've learned along the way that has really helped me to do what I do. So the first thing I would tell you is read. I'm a voracious reader. On an average day, it's 2 to 3 hours a day.
Wow.
And people go, "Where do you find time?" And the answer is you sort of make time. And the reason why I start there is because the more you read, the more you understand different perspectives, and the more you understand what it is, and most importantly, what you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So if you start from the basis of I need to know what I don't know, it allows you to then approach any problem and have a basis of the exploration that's necessary to uncover what it is that you need to do. So I would tell you the advice that I give particularly younger folks is if you're not reading a lot every day, you need to.
Yeah. I had a coach years ago tell me that, to your point, he reads about a book a week. And I started to build that practice into my own life. And I'll tell you, it's incredibly powerful. To your point, it's the same reason we do these lives. It's the same reason we write, is because without perspective, you effectively have tunnel vision. And you brought up something that I haven't thought about before, which is without that sort of open perspective and without understanding other people's opinions and lessons learned, you're not able to identify what you don't know. And that's incredibly powerful, because I think, again, to this earlier point, it can have this sort of false sense of security. You have these sort of blinders on that you don't even realize you have on. So that's great advice. Is there anything you're reading now? Is there anything that comes to mind and you go, this is something you have to check out?
So I'm halfway through, but a book that recently got released called The Exponential Age is something that I'm enjoying a great deal.
Okay. All right. I'll check it out. For those of you who haven't read it, check it out. We'll see. If you don't like it, drop John a note. If you love it, drop me a note by all means. No hate mail, nothing like that. So here's the other thing that you get to do and have a great perspective on is you get a chance to see teams across the entire IT industry, from distribution, OEM, SI, VAR, end user. You get to see them work together and sort of in their own silos or in their own, individual teams. Is there anything that you're seeing from how teams are functioning now to how they're sort of reimagining everything, reimagining the future, that you go, you know what, they're falling short here? Or here are some areas where, some gotchas that I'm noticing teams can improve on?
Yeah. I would summarize the entire topic into 2 words. And I would say it's about change management, right? And to learn and to have a framework by which to impart that change, and more importantly, solicit the help of others for that change. So a few years ago, I was exposed to a group, an organization, and a book that I make every single team member that I work with read. So if you're a new hire that has anything to do with my team, that's required reading. And the book is called ADKAR, and it was written by an organization called ProSci. And ProSci is one of the leading change management companies in the world. And ADKAR is an acronym of which, in my opinion, the first 3 letters is the most important. And it stands for awareness, desire, and knowledge. And it's serial in its thinking. You can never get to material change if the awareness isn't there. So then the question is, if awareness is there and desire is not, then the question is why, right? Is it missing knowledge? But 90% of the time, it's because desire is low. So then I always encourage everybody that I work with to say, go examine why that desire is so low. And 90% of the time, because the other party doesn't understand and isn't aware of what's going on, right? Or the need to change. So that's, I would say, the second most important book that I've read in my entire career.
Wow. Okay. So you hit on a couple of things. We just talked about how you need that perspective to have awareness. And that's a great word, right? You have to kind of know what you don't know in order to change it. And I can definitely see, we saw this sort of in the onset of cloud, when a lot of these big organizations stuck their head in the sand and said, what cloud? It's going to be, it's just a phase, and they're sort of trying to dig themselves out now and understand, how do they plug into this sort of new norm or this sort of evolving ecosystem. But then you also talked about, as a team driving that motivation. And I think a lot of times we get stuck with, why do we talk about things like culture in the workplace? Why do we talk about things like motivation? And what is a behavioral analyst doing in the IT space? And you hit on it, is so much of what we do has the people element, has the people component to it. And of course, we have machines and software and boxes and all the things. But I think it's very easy to forget the human element of our industry. And without that level of motivation, that's, even if you have awareness, that's where people get stuck, is they don't have that sort of desire. That was a great word. They don't have that desire. So what can they do? Maybe give us a little, some of the cliff notes in the book, or, the Tonthat cliff notes, if you will. What do you do if your team is lacking desire? I mean, we're right in the middle of the Great Resignation right now.
Yeah. I would almost always attribute low desire or lack of desire to the lack of awareness, either self or to the greater cause, right? So I encourage everybody, whatever, if it's a process change within your department, or it's institutional change in the way that you have to think and approach technology, it's you have to spend the time to think through the why. Why do we all need to do this? And if you can't articulate the why in a fairly short, concise way, in a way that a 5-year-old can understand, you're overcomplicating things, and that suppresses desire. So awareness is probably the most important step in the ADKAR model.
So we talk a little bit about desire and sort of awareness in a professional context, something you and I have talked about in your own personal life. And you've given me permission to talk about this, which I am so excited about, because I think it's something that's all of us are struggling with or trying to figure out. But not everybody's willing to talk about it. And what I found is so powerful is when people like you in your position are willing to say, this is something that I'm working through right now. It's not only empowering to you, because I think you get to be more free about it, but it's empowering to other people who are going through it. So I want to touch on, you've talked a little bit about how you want to leave a legacy even beyond your professional career, and we've dug a little bit into that, but tell me, where does that come from? What's driving that sort of desire?
Yeah. I think this is, I say this often, Sabrina, and that is one of the things that I'm blessed with every day when I look in the mirror, is all the gray hair.
Didn't think you were going to say that. Okay. All right.
The gray hair has afforded me just that, right? Time and experience to reflect on what is important and arguably what isn't important. And there's a lot of things that are important to a lot of people, but I think a common theme to define value, personal value, is how have you helped somebody else, right? Materially change somebody's life. Can you do that? Right? It's there's an old adage, I think we all know, that is, on your tombstone, what do you want people to remember? Right? Is it the billionaire? Yeah, maybe. Or, that person made a material difference and changed some number of lives. I'm at a point where that's fairly important, right? Because I really feel like the next generation coming along that's getting into IT, particularly IT distribution, needs as much assistance and help to guide their path.
Okay, let me ask you two tough questions because I have to, right? One, what are your 5 words, or what's on your tombstone? What do people remember about you?
Yeah. Um, I I believe is in the movie Shawshank Redemption,
Okay.
which is to say, get busy living or get busy dying. I will
Okay.
tell you that I've thought about that question often, and that in fact will be on my tombstone.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, I gotta push back on you though. People are gonna hear this and they're gonna say, "That's really cute, John. That's really sweet." But I've got a number to worry about. I got a quota I got to talk about. I've got people quitting left and right because my competitors over here offering hundreds of thousands of dollars of a bonus.
Yeah,
What does this have to do with business? How
yeah,
is this going to help my organization innovate and reimagine everything?
yeah. I would tell you this. I think that if you really survey coworkers and employees, and then you said, okay, within plus or minus 30%, you work in a place, in an environment, and people that you deeply care about, that there's a connection to the purpose of whatever it is that you're striving for,
Mm-hmm.
right? Are you willing to give that up for 30% more comp? And I would argue with you, of the people that I've surveyed, they would gladly give up the comp, which is to say, yes, the great resignation is occurring. And yes, because of a variety of economic factors, there's all kinds of impact to competitiveness from an income perspective. But I think what we all forget is, what is it that anchors us? And I will tell you, the staff that I have, the team that I work with, Sabrina, they can go out there and make plus or minus more. So then the question is, what am I doing to provide an environment that money can't buy? Right. So yes, I completely get the reality of life happening at the pace of IT today. But I would argue that part of all of that, we actually need to slow down, and we really need to think through what matters.
Yeah.
So that would be my retort.
You're so good. You're so good. And from a behavioral standpoint, it's spot on. I mean, study after study after study shows that not only do you personally think better when you've slowed down. I mean, your amygdala is triggered, you've got hormones running up and down, you really physically cannot think better. Your reaction time is slower. And then when you put that in a group context and ignore even more complications like group think, the group doesn't think as well.
Mm-hmm.
They don't collaborate as well. So there genuinely is a business interest in slowing down and reevaluating your decisions, your meetings, your time, your contribution, because you said a massive phrase. You didn't just say make someone have a better day or, help them a little bit. You said help change their life.
Yeah.
That's massive. That's massive. But in that, to your point, you bring more loyalty, you develop real friends,
Mm-hmm.
you strengthen and grow as a person, and you help them strengthen and grow other people. So it starts to build this legacy that is so bigger and beyond us. This sort of, that drop in the water and the ripple effect of a legacy. And that's really what we're doing here, is helping not just organizations, but our own organizations. And through that, that's how we start to, leave something bigger than ourselves. Would you agree? You can push
Amen.
back.
One word.
Good. You said it just like I paid you to. Good. That's great. Thank you, John. Good. Excellent. I can't believe it. We had so many questions for you, John, and we got through 2 of them. We're already out of time, but even just in this interaction, you know, we've touched on personal, we've touched on professional. You continue to help me grow. And I know that you're helping other people grow. And I so appreciate your time. I know that you're traveling, you're back to business travel now. You were talking about how you're back to 100, you know, miles an hour kind of with travel alone. So thank you for taking this time. You know, if there's one last thought that you want to leave folks with, one last resource, what would that be? Do you have anything that you want to leave sort of the live with?
Yeah, I'll leave it with this. If you are in the IT business, I would encourage you to actually read one of my favorite sort of websites and thought leadership is Silicon Angle, right? So if you're not familiar with it and you want to keep pace with what's happening in this industry, that's a personal favorite. And then to the point around one piece of advice, just one, would be 2 words: slow down.
Amen. I'll shoot it right back. This was good. Thank you, John. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
All right, everyone. And we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.